Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Tales of Herding Gods based on novel. So let's start. Sister Mu's poison technique has already joined the pieces together, entering a realm that's so mysterious that even gods and spirits could not predict it. Qin Mu couldn't help exclaiming in admiration. Mu Yingshua's attainments in the poison path had already surpassed his, and he had to admit that she really had outstanding comprehension in this field. She had a really unique thought process which was really suited to comprehending the poison path. After that battle with him, she had to have absorbed part of Apothecary's ideology and found her own path, so she could easily defeat Yu Qingqian. Apothecary's attainments in the poison path were extraordinary, but Qin Mu mainly specialized in treating and saving people. He didn't research much into poison techniques, so it was natural for him to be surpassed by Mu Yingxue. If it was him fighting with Yu Qingqian in the arena with the poisonous substances on the arena, he would have needed to use the creation techniques from great educational heavenly devil scriptures to change the toxicity. Even though it was similar to Mu Yingshue's ideology, he would have needed to spend quite some time to achieve the same result. He could defeat Yu Qingqian, but it wouldn't be as easy as it was for Mu Yingxue. Of course, Qin Mu cultivated medicine and poison together, using medicine to supplement poison, which had an unexpected effect. If it was truly a life and death struggle, it would be hard to say which of them would come out superior. Mu Yingxue jumped down from the arena, but she still didn't touch the ground. A vine automatically grew out from the ground and huge leaves lifted her up. She stretched her hand out toward Qin Mu, who took it and got pulled onto the leaf. The green vine under their feet grew higher and higher, lifting them up. Mu Yingxue waved toward everyone below the arena, full of delight and pride. Look, even we who refine poison can still find our ideal husbands. My little man, Middle-earth's heavenly devil cult master, is very powerful. Cheers erupted below. Some girl laughed loudly. Poison Master, you have found your ideal husband after one trip to Middle-earth. So when will you bring all of us to Middle-earth? Mu Yingxue looked down at them with excitement. After my little man's matters are finished, I'll bring you to Middle-earth to bring misfortune to Middle-earth's men. I've heard it's men who are superior in Middle-earth. What a truly backward region. Let's go correct them. That's right. Correct them. Another girl smiled and said, it's not easy for Poison Master to find a person she likes, so we have to celebrate. The laughter of numerous girls was still echoing in the streets when a group rushed out from somewhere. They slapped their waist drums and tapped their feet to the beat, dancing and singing. Thunder Mountain City instantly became bustling, and numerous young men and women took each other hands, singing the folk songs of West Earth shoulder to shoulder. Some divine arts practitioner executed the divine arts of West Earth, and the green vines, poisonous flowers, as well as grass, grew frantically. The men and women who cultivated poison techniques wandered through the flowers and sang songs to each other. Some even stood on rising vine leaves to dance with the partners they admired. Gongs and drums rang out, and loud and clear song pierced the air. Qin Mu, who stood on the leaf, looked down and saw a huge green toad with white belly walking over from the end of the street, taking up most of it. A bunch of big-eared opossums followed behind it, showing off their glossy metal scales. Beside them were numerous toad spirits that were croaking in accompaniment. The toad spirits rapidly stuck out their tongues to hit the scales of the opossums, giving off clear clangs. There were also numerous toad spirits dancing and beating gongs and drums, while some played the short flutes with their forefingers. A few big centipedes tapped to the rhythm as they wiggled their bodies. From time to time, there would be centipedes flying up and kicking onto the bulging cheeks of the toad spirits, making them croak. On the head of the big green toad, a pretty young woman slowly stood up. Her black dress swirled as she sang. Qin Mu was very engrossed in the song. Even though the green vine had already risen very high, the magnificent sight of the city in celebration was still in his eyes. The melodious singing voices all reached his ears. The passionate feelings of the maidens of West Earth flooded him like waves, wrapping him up layer by layers as they poured into his heart. The green vine suddenly lowered him and Mu Yingxue, bringing them through one street after another. There were people dancing everywhere with strange and weird spirits and venomous creatures. Everyone did flamboyant dance poses and messy dance moves before raising their hands up to touch those of his and Mu Ingxue that was stretched out. The tune that resonated throughout the whole Thunder Mountain city suddenly became reverberating and impassionate, happy and noisy. Qin Mu felt like he had come to a kingdom of the legends, where giant green vines carried him and a young maiden beside him to pass through all the streets filled with joyful people. The green vine brought them back, raising them up and down along the way. Girls on the various trees stepped on the leaves to hang flower garlands on their necks. There were also young girls lying on the treetops, swinging their little legs and looking at the both of them who were rising up. With their hands cupped around their mouths, they sang love songs that tugged at people's heartstrings while a swarm of locusts tapped on small gongs with their hind legs in accompaniment. Green vines stretched toward the center of the city and went over the incomparably bustling streets, stretching above the circular houses and coming to Mu Ingxue's palace hall. The loft of the palace had its windows open, and the green vine sent the young man and woman on the leaf into the room. Qin Mu and Mu Ingxue stood in front of the window and watched the bustling crowd moving through the street below, continuing with their songs and dances. They were still celebrating the happy occasion, Poison Master Mu Ingxue finding her ideal husband. So embarrassing. Mu Ingxue covered her face and grumbled, "They are celebrating like this as though I shouldn't have been able to find my ideal husband. They can't wait to send me off for visiting marriage." Qin Mu looked at her and saw that the girl before him who was number one in West Earth's poison path didn't have any hint of bashfulness. Instead, she was very daring and hot, diluting the bashfulness with her burning passion. The passion of West Earth's maiden was slightly hard for Qin Mu to stomach, and the intoxicating morning of Thunder Mountain City had left him slightly bewitched. His thoughts scattered, and he got lost in his emotions. The celebration was only the first thing. When afternoon came, Mu Ingxue couldn't conceal her excitement. She lay her head on Qin Mu's shoulder and looked quite blissful. The dragon Qilin carefully walked among the poisonous flowers while looking at the young men and young women that were still standing at the windows while grumbling softly. Back then, Patriarch had also degenerated this way. Every year, that dirty old man would abandon me to come to West Earth. Qin Mu finally woke up from the dream and said, "Sister Mu, we still have important matters to settle." Mu Ingxue's face grew slightly red and she tugged at the corner of his shirt. "Visiting marriage is at night. Why are you so impatient? Can't you endure a bit more? However, if you are really urgent, even so I can't. I can't yield to you. Over here, women are the ones in charge. Men have to accommodate the women." Qin Mu blinked and patiently waited for her to finish talking. "Sister, the reason I came to West Earth this time is because I'm trying to help Xiong Xiyu and her daughter take back the position of true Heaven Palace Master, and that's why I created such a big ruckus. This should be the family matters of your West Earth, but back when Xiong family was overthrown by Yu family and numerous people died, you had already gotten related." Mu Ingxue nodded and ordered for the dragon Qilin and Xiong Chia to be invited inside while she continued to be intimate with Qin Mu. "Back when Yu family made their move on Xiong family, I had indeed been of great help. Yu family had a Bago whose origin is very terrifying, so I was forced to agree to help Yu family poison Xiong family. My poison didn't take their lives, but you know that." Qin Mu nodded. Mu Ingxue's poison was coiling silk which destroyed a person's cultivation but didn't harm the person otherwise. When Qin Mu had met Xiong Xiyu, what she was suffering from was coiling silk poison which had severely damaged her cultivation. It was because of that she had been chased down by Yu Buchuan until she was in an extremely miserable state. Mu Ingxue's face darkened when she said, "I never expected Yu family to be so ruthless, eliminating all of the Xiong family. However, even if I had known that Yu family would do so, I would have still helped them." Qin Mu looked at her with puzzlement. Mu Ingxue sighed. "The lives of everyone in my Mu family and Thunder Mountain City rest on my shoulders, and if I hadn't listened, Yu family would have laid their hands on my people. As Poison Master, I need to think of my Mu family. Naikue hates me very much, right?" Shame showed up on her face, but she quickly concealed it. She returned back to her usual cold look and said, "There's nothing I can do even if she hates me. I couldn't gamble the lives of my family for her. Sister should know my aim for coming, right?" Mu Ingxue was the chief of Mu family, and her networks were fast and abundant. She nodded and said, "I know. From the moment you stepped into West Earth and True Heaven Palace ordered your arrest, I knew what you had come here for. Heavenly Devil Cult Master, you have great ambition and you won't risk your life to come here just for the love between a man and a woman. You aren't here for me, and not here for the visiting marriage. You are here to pull off a grand scheme." The air around her suddenly changed and became chilly. "You want to flip West Earth upside down and change it completely. Your ambition lies in annexing West Earth into Eternal Peace Empire's rule. And the fastest way to achieve this is by supporting Xiong Xiu in becoming the Palace Master of True Heaven Palace. She has nothing left and is burdened with revenge, so she has no choice but to agree with you on the terms of Eternal Peace Emperor. Once she becomes the Palace Master again, True Heaven Palace will announce their merger with Eternal Peace." Qin Mu couldn't help sighing ruefully. After coming to West Earth, he had met numerous unusual women. There was He who was natural yet wise, and Liu family's mother and daughter who were very cunning. All of them were extremely outstanding, and their vision was far-reaching. Mu Xue who was in front of him was also outstanding. "I've owed Xiong family too much, but I can't throw away the lives of my family just because I owe them. You have not met Biego and don't know his prowess, but I do. I know how terrifying he is, and I also know that there's a God living in True Heaven Palace. No matter how strong your forces are and how many experts of West Earth you gather, you can't win. You will just send yourselves to your deaths." "I shouldn't have come," Qin Mu said sadly, standing up. Mu Xue's heart trembled and she rose as well. "I want you to stay and not die. If you want to go, I won't stop you. The women of my West Earth won't hold back a man who's insistent on leaving." Qin Mu bowed. "Sister Mu, farewell." After he said so, he turned around to walk out of the building. "You?" Mu Xue gritted her teeth and shouted after him, "You will die, do you know that?" Qin Mu turned back to smile at her. "Back when I rescued them, I knew I might die if I lent a helping hand, but I still did it. Sister, I won't force you to do anything for me." Mu Xue was anxious and stamped her feet. "Even if you die, I won't think of you." Qin Mu laughed and came face to face with the dragon Qilin and Xiong Qia who were coming up. "This town of warmth, I've seen it. Fatty dragon, let's go." The dragon Qilin was puzzled, but he still sprinted down the building, carrying them out of the city. "Brother-in-law?" In one street, a girl raised her head and looked at Qin Mu's back that was rushing away. Qin Mu threw a fragrance pouch toward the girl and recited loudly, "Busy days have ways to get through them too. My nature is stupid and that's hard to change. Sister, treat it as I've never come." Mu Xue looked at him who was leaving Thunder Mountain City until he completely vanished. She walked out of the building and saw Thunder Mountain City in a mess. Everywhere there were traces left behind by the celebration in the morning. Toad spirits were cleaning up slowly, dragging the drunk people away. At one corner of the street, a few girls looked at her, and one pushed herself to say, "Sister, brother-in-law, he's gone," Mu Xue heard herself say in a voice that was unfamiliar to her. "He probably won't come back anymore." She touched her face and realized that it had become wet at some point. "Brother-in-law just passed this to me, it should be sisters." The girl Qin Mu had met walked over and in her hands was a fragrance pouch with embroidered golden mandarin ducks. Mu Xue opened the fragrance pouch and took out the red beans of yearning. Mu Xue, dressed in a black dress, was stunned as she gripped the fragrance pouch in her hands tightly. She then suddenly burst into tears. She and Qin Mu were strangers who'd come together by chance, so talking about any deep feeling was naturally random nonsense. At that time, she had merely had a good impression of him and felt that he didn't look bad. He also had elegance and personality that matched her taste in men. For a poison master, it was very difficult to find a man that had an affinity with her. Most were either scared to death or got poisoned to death by her. But Qin Mu was a person who could accept her. The people of West Earth respected poison masters, but no one dared to love them. There were quite a number of previous poison masters who had died alone. They were temperamental people, and their methods were ruthless, so it was only natural that no one dared to love them. Qin Mu had kept the fragrance pouch she had given him, that handful of red beans, and brought it along when coming to Thunder Mountain City in West Earth to find her. Mu Yingxue had said that she knew he had not come for her, but when she looked at the pouch of red beans, the weak side of her inner heart was touched. Strangers may come together by chance, having yearned for it unknowingly. Qin Mu hadn't come to West Earth just because of the Emperor and Imperial Preceptor's stratagem, but also because he still had her in his heart. Silly boy, is it worth it to travel 10,000 miles for a stranger? However, Qin Mu seemed to be such a person. He and Xiong Xiu were also strangers who'd met by chance, but he still pursued justice for her with no second thoughts. He saved the mother and daughter without hesitating to put himself in danger. The affairs of Xiong Xiu and her daughter were not related to him, but he had still done it. He even brought Xiong Xia back to West Earth to take justice for them. Even though there was definitely the Emperor and Imperial Preceptor's idea somewhere along with it, Mu Yingxue was certain that the aim of the silly boy was to take justice for the mother and daughter. The dim-witted decision in other people's eyes was the big boy's code of conduct and an irreversible principle. To study the underlying principle to acquire knowledge is to know and act as one. By studying something or some profession to the end was studying the underlying principle to acquire knowledge. However, it didn't necessarily have to come from one's heart. Heart and mind as one was not necessarily a different kind of knowing and acting as one. It was the sign of a great master. Mu Yingxue was stunned. The first time they met, they were enemies who appreciated each other's talents. She had lost then. Her poison techniques had lost to his, and she admired that big boy very much. Even though she had gifted him red beans and stolen a kiss, it still hadn't been love. But in the meeting just then, it wasn't his poison technique that she saw, but his personality. Qin Mu's personality had won her over. Xiong family's matter had been caused by her. It was her poison which had felled numerous experts of True Heaven Palace and spoiled all of their cultivation. Only then was Yu family able to successfully seize True Heaven Palace in one strike. Without the backbone of Xiong family, they were defeated. The miserable deaths of many people at that time were all related to her. Xiong family's matter was caused by me, so I can't let my little man assume the responsibility for me. Mu Yingxue raised her head, and confidence flooded into her back once again as she smiled. In our West Earth, women are in charge, so how can I let my little man face the disaster I caused? Sisters of Thunder Mountain City. Her voice resonated with svelte and high spirits. Pack your bags and prepare for war. In Thunder Mountain City, countless divine arts practitioners skilled in poison techniques packed their luggage and soon gathered together. They looked at that chief of theirs and saw that she was glowing with vigor like never before. Her pretty face was shining with a luster like that of pearls, and she looked very charming. "Sister, where are we going?" the young girl asked. Mu Yingxue jumped and green vine slithered over from midair, landing under her feet to lift her up. Her voice was filled with a charm and laughter when she spoke next. "Of course we are going to chase after your brother-in-law and stuff this pouch of yearning red beans back into his hands. We have to make sure he holds onto it properly and never forgets this yearning, or me, Mu Yingxue." "All right." The other girls roared with laughter. "Let's quickly head out. Such a good brother-in-law, we can't let any hussy snatch him away. Let's seize brother-in-law back. Seize brother-in-law back." Qin Mu returned to God Burial Valley of Liu family. The pitch-black coffins joined him, growing legs to run right after. In the sky, there were more black coffins, forming a dark cloud. Among them, there were chains holding a golden coffin that was really large and extremely eye-catching. Numerous black coffins escorted it in the sky, and Qin Mu was very bewildered why Liu Ruyan was insistent on bringing such a dangerous thing along. However, when he heard it was her daughter's idea, he didn't question it anymore. The little girl, Liu Zhenqing, was a clever and cunning person. Since she wanted to bring along the golden coffin, there was definitely some use for it. As Qin Mu brought the forces of Liu family toward Sword River Valley, preparing to group up with He and the rest, he suddenly heard a loud and clear voice coming from behind him. "Little man, wait for me." Qin Mu turned his head back and couldn't help being stunned. The divine arts practitioners of Thunder Mountain City were sitting on all kinds of venomous beasts and venomous insects hurrying over while bustling with activity. There were spiders, centipedes, toads, snakes, venomous birds, beasts, wasps, and they were all over the sky. There were also numerous toxic plants that had been awakened by those divine arts practitioners, and highly toxic tree men were striking forward. There were also slender vines with flower maidens from poisonous flowers flapping their petals. There were even some venomous fish that had grown legs to sprint quickly on land. In the lead was Mu Ingxue, who looked to be in high spirits as she rushed toward him through the path opened up by the coffin army. Without any explanation, she jumped onto the dragon Chiline's head and stuffed the fragrance pouch into his hand before hugging him to plant a heavy kiss on his cheek. Qin Mu was at a loss while the girl was very proud of herself as she said loudly, "I want you to keep this yearning pouch with you forever and never throw it away. Never forget about me in your whole life. Can you do it?" With heroism filling up his chest, Qin Mu loudly stated, "Can." Mu Ingxue turned her head back and waved at the sisters of Thunder Mountain City. He said, "Can. Sisters, aunts, let's take down True Heaven Palace and change the world." Cheers erupted from behind them. Beside the dragon Chiline, a small black coffin flipped over and Liu Zhenqing popped her head out. Her hands were crossed in front of her chest, and she was pouting unhappily. "Little hussy," she grumbled when she took a glance at Mu Ingxue. Liu Ruian's coffin flew to her side and this chief of Liu family whispered, "Don't mind this little hussy who is so proud now. When she dies, let's make her a Liu." Banners were fluttering in Sword River Valley, and Qin Mu was astonished by the number of influential families of West Earth that had gathered and set up their camps. It should be the first time that West Earth had become so bustling. The flags of He family, Fang family, Gong family, Shi family, and Fu family were all raised up high, and but there weren't the only ones. There were many others who'd come as well. All of the influential families specialized in different abilities. He family was skilled in formations. Fang family was skilled in controlling mountains, Gong family was skilled in controlling the river flow, Shi family was skilled in controlling grass and trees, while Fu family was skilled in controlling meteorological phenomenon. The other influential families also had their own specialties. The gathered people were mostly women. The number of them was still simply astounding. The woman army of hundreds of thousands stunned Qin Mu. Even though Eternal Peace Empire was very open and women could also be officials and join the army, they took up only 20% of the whole. Men were still in the majority. Yet in West Earth, the women took up 80% while the men were only 20%. On top of that, what the men did was usually running errands. This is a rare chance for the influential families of West Earth. If Yu family could be overthrown, Xiong family's decline would mean that they could receive greater freedom from True Heaven Palace. This is why they came here for an uprising. Qin Mu sucked in a deep breath and formed a fist when he looked in the direction of True Heaven Palace. On the journey to West Earth, he had only brought the dragon Chiline and Xiong Chia. It just him, a mount, and a weak girl, with no soldiers at all. Yet he had amassed a several 100,000 women army that was prepared to attack West Earth's strongest True Heaven Palace. When he thought about it, he couldn't help growing so excited that his bones started trembling and his primordial spirit was about to fly out. Holding Xiong Chia's hand, he entered Bamboo City with Mu Ingxue, Liu Ruian, and her daughter. The heads of all the influential families were gathered there and were anxiously awaiting his arrival. Qin Mu bowed low to the ground and said loudly, "Middle-earth's heavenly devil cult master Qin Mu pays his respects to all the sisters." Numerous women hurriedly returned the greeting. "Cult master Qin, no need for formalities." Qin Mu tugged on Xiong Chia, and she immediately bowed to pay her respects as well. Chia pays her respect to all the aunts. Everyone hurriedly returned her greeting to. "We dare not. Little princess, quickly get up." Qin Mu straightened up and smiled wide at them. Many women strengthen one's resolve, which dares to make sun and moon shine in new skies. "Sisters, this little brother has come all the way from Middle-earth and hopes to see sisters' abilities in True Heaven Palace. Sister Yi, can we begin our journey?" He called on Bamboo City, and it uprooted itself. At the same time, all the heads of the influential families sent out their commands, and the land trembled while the clouds rushed forward. The women army of several 100,000 marched toward true heavenly palace. The dragon Qin turned his head back to take a look, and he couldn't help sighing ruefully. Patriarch, wasn't this awe-inspiring back then? Cult Master is Cult Master after all. He came to West Earth for a bit and has already hooked up with hundreds of thousands of girls. Far away in the sky, Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor and Xiong Xiu stood on top of a cloud and looked at the majestic sight from afar. Xiong Xiu was dumbfounded, unable to say anything. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor was also speechless. Imperial Preceptor, did you expect this result from the start? Xiong Xiu finally returned to her senses and curiously examined the middle-aged man beside her. Even I, the previous Nikue, wouldn't have such ability and power like Cult Master Qin. He could actually gather hundreds of thousands of people with a single summon. Isn't Cult Master Qin a little too scary? Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor let out a shaky breath and muttered, I knew he would cause trouble and definitely attract the attention of True Heaven Palace, but I didn't know he would be this good at it. True Heaven Palace will certainly feel threatened by this, and what is even better is that Biego will have no choice but to show himself. Once he suffers a setback, the god hidden in True Heaven Palace will have to show himself and let me have the chance to deal a fatal blow to him. He looked at the majestic women army and couldn't help shivering while shaking his head. Too terrifying, such cohesiveness is simply too terrifying. However, Cult Master Qin's talents lie in this, after all. Even I was tricked by him into joining Heavenly Saint Cult. If this little rascal ever decided to rebel, we shall just follow from afar and hide properly. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor saw Qin Mu's women army off and said leisurely, wait for Biego and that god to make their move. Cult Master Qin will help us settle everything. Xiong Xiu was deeply moved. Back then when she had asked for Qin Mu's help in Great Ruins, she hadn't thought that the big boy that saved them actually had such terrifying capabilities. He was able to stir up such a huge storm in West Earth. She had thought that he was only a disciple of an influential family who had some abilities. However, the more she understood him, the more she was moved by his extraordinariness. The huge bamboo city sprinted through the vast land while Qin Mu and the heads of West Earth's influential families stood at the top of the city tower, managing their army to prevent the situation of the groups trampling over one another. The disciples of all the influential families in West Earth were not troops that were trained, so they had to spend quite some effort in managing them. Luckily there was He, the formation expert who used formation skills to manage the disciples of the influential families. With her assistance, everything gradually became smooth and simple. West Earth's Sword Master Luo Inu pays his respects to Middle Earth's Cult Master Qin. Qin Mu looked at the long-haired girl that was walking over to him, and astonishment appeared on his face. He returned the greeting in a hurry. West Earth had 3 masters, Poison Master Mu Ingxue, Formation Master He, and Sword Master Luo Inu. Qin Mu was very familiar with Mu Ingxue and He, so only the Sword Master Luo Inu was a new face to him. She was different from the other women of West Earth. They liked to wear gold and silver, like crowns, necklaces, and numerous bracelets on their hands and legs, but there was not an accessory to be found on Sword Master. Her clothes were also extremely simple. She wore only an ordinary robe that was simple yet elegant. It had no extra colors. Her hair was also unadorned. A simple string was used to tie it, ensuring that it wouldn't become messed up. Her black hair was reached her waist, like that of other women, and created a great contrast to her white clothing. The reason why she dressed so simply was because she was like a sword that couldn't contain any impurities. Any accessories would be impurities to her. She was a woman who had no other joys but for her sword, to which she was probably already married. When Qin Mu saw her, he felt as if there was a sword aimed at him. When she bowed, sword light shone intensely. It was incomparably sharp and stabbed straight at his Dao heart. Qin Mu bowed to return the greeting while easily blocking her sword will. Sword Master Luo Inu rose with a strange look in her eyes. Cult Master Qin is also a sword skill expert? Qin Mu inclined his head in a humble manner. I dare not say so. How many sword skill experts are there in the world? In terms of ability, There are countless that surpass me. However, in terms of attainments in sword skills, I can most likely be ranked as well. Swordmaster Luo Inu grew even more curious and said, I had long wanted to go to Middle-earth to see the degree of swords there. Since Cult Master Qin is a sword expert from Middle-earth, can you introduce me to who are the ones that surpass you in sword skill? Qin Mu gave it some thought and shook his head. There should be no more people that surpass me in sword skills, but there are some who have already entered the realm of sword path and I don't dare say how many of them there are. However, Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor is definitely above me. There's also my family's village chief. He taught me 3 sword skills and his attainments on the sword path are extraordinary. As for the other experts on the sword path, I don't know much about them so I dare not speak of them. Sword path of sword skills? Luo Inu's face fell in disappointment as she muttered, is there really someone who entered the sword path? I've concentrated on chasing after the end of sword skills for so many years yet I never reached the sword path. There are actually people able to enter that kind of marvelous realm. Qin Mu could understand her disappointment. Luo Inu was at the stage of pursuing knowledge to the end, seeking the extreme comprehension of the sword skill. She most likely had already achieved the extremes in it, but she didn't have any idea about the sword path, which made her unable to enter it. Qin Mu telling her that there were numerous experts on the sword path in Middle-earth was a huge setback to her. Sword skills and sword path might only differ by a single word, but the difference between them was that of heaven and earth. No matter how good one's sword skill was, they would be insignificant in front of sword path experts. Qin Mu's curiosity was stirred and he said, I've not seen the sword skills of your West Earth before, so I wonder how they differ from those of my Middle Earth. We had 14 forms before, but then Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor added 3 more forms, making the count reach 17 forms. Not long ago, I also added another form, pushing the number to 18 forms of basic sword skills. How many forms does West Earth sword skills have? Luo Inu's eyes went wide in astonishment. There are already 18 forms in Middle Earth sword skills? My West Earth only has 14 forms, however, our sword skills rely on the sword spirit and emphasize on power. What we use might be different from your sword skills. This video will end here.